Greetings! Thanks for joining us again today here at stevedeace.com and clicking on Deace's Daily Diatribe. We're continuing our 9-part series here, looking at the fatal flaws of each of the people we believe are the most likely to be on the ballot come February the 6th, 2012 in Iowa's first in the nation caucuses. That's when Iowans will get the chance to cast the first official ballots in the 2012 presidential race, or as some of you would describe it, the 2012 race to finally free us from the shackles of an abomination. Now, we're not sure that all 9 of these people will be on the ballot. We just think they're the 9 most likely to be. And the one we're going to look at today is one that a lot of people think, despite the fact he's the reigning champ, isn't going to come back to defend his crown. And that's Mike Huckabee, former Arkansas governor and 2008 Iowa caucus winner. In the interest of full disclosure, I was a big Huckabee supporter back in 2008, so you should know that as we take a look at his weaknesses and filter your opinion of my analysis accordingly. And the reason we're looking at the weaknesses of these candidates, it's because whoever can do the best to both mitigate and cover their own weaknesses and overcome their own weaknesses while simultaneously exploiting the weaknesses of their opponents is more than likely going to emerge the victor on February the 6th. And even Mike Huckabee, for all of his strengths and all the advantages that he has, 500 radio stations, Fox News, all the love and just affection that Iowans have for Mike Huckabee, even Mike Huckabee has a fatal flaw that stands in the way between him and being the winner in the 2012 Iowa caucuses. And I think for Mike Huckabee, that fatal flaw is expectations. It's a lot different being the underdog than it is being the favorite. You know, if you talk to coaches, they'd almost always rather be the underdog in their sport than the favorite. Why do you think every team, even the great teams, remember the Michael Jordan teams back in the day that won titles almost annually? Even they played the no respect card. Now, why is that? Because it's easier to motivate your team when you're the underdog or you feel challenged than it is when you're the favorite. And Mike Huckabee had that motivation. And so did his supporters like me. We had that motivation as well. We wanted to make a point. We wanted to make a point to the party establishment. We wanted to make a point to sell out pragmatic, seat at the table Christian conservative leaders that no longer do they just send down their marching orders and like a bunch of political Pavlovian dogs we just follow in lockstep. They just Pied Piper us right over like lemmings over a cliff. We weren't going to do that anymore. We were going to think for ourselves. We're going to vet these candidates honestly. And Mike Huckabee was sort of the symbol of that rebellion. And he jumped on his surfboard and rode that wave right at the right time. On top of the fact he's a very gifted politician, an exceedingly gifted speaker, he was the right person at the right time. However, that perfect storm will not be there in 2012. And that means he's going to have to not just count on organic, combustible, grassroots support. He's going to have to put together something that major candidates have to put together when they're running for president. And that is a real organization and raise real money. And that means real expectations. And these are expectations that I think are fair. Because Mike Huckabee's been on 500 radio stations, replacing the late Paul Harvey. He's been on the most successful cable network in America, not called ESPN, every day. He's had name recognition and exposure none of the other presidential candidates have had. And he's got to show that he's cashed in on that a little bit. So the expectations game for him, people are going to look at his fundraising numbers more than ever before. People are going to look at what kind of organization he puts together in Iowa more than they ever did before. And if you look at a lot of the people that were really essential in his 2008 organization, they're either currently not available or they're already working for other candidates. So the expectations game for Mike Huckabee, you know, when you come in as the favorite, there's only one place to go, and that's down. And that also unites everybody else against you. And it will be very interesting to see, if indeed he does run, how he handles that dynamic, because all of his political career, Mike Huckabee has thrived on being underestimated. And when you got a last name as Huckabee and you kind of go to a funny-sounding Baptist college and your last name, you know, doesn't sound like, you know, your parents are Ivy League scholars and you didn't go to an Ivy League school and you didn't, you know, grow up the creme de la creme, you know, you do learn to thrive on that, and it puts a chip on your shoulder. And Mike Huckabee's a lot more street smart than I think a lot of people give him credit for. But this, if indeed he does run this go-around here in Iowa, this will be the first time in his political career that Mike Huckabee is the King Kong. He's the Kobe Bryant. He's the Michael Jordan in this race, and everybody's gunning for him. And it's a lot easier winning that first title than it is defending the next one after you've won it. So it will be very interesting to see how Mike Huckabee overcomes those expectations and lives up to them if indeed he decides to run. And he's also got to do that on an issue basis, because the man that he supported in the last gubernatorial primary, his good friend Bob Vanderplaats, really raised the bar for a lot of conservatives that are going to take part in these caucuses in terms of what is it that we can really do to stand up to the loss of our liberty, freedom, and the loss of our constitutional republic. And Mike Huckabee can't just come here with a lot of the same traditional conservative talking points that he had in 2008. He's got to show that, at least on a couple of issues, he's willing to challenge the system. Because one of the knocks on him, particularly from men I talk to, they're afraid he's just Mr. Nice Guy, another well-meaning, ne'er-do-well, big government Republican, compassionate conservative like George W. Bush. So he's got to show that he can play tough if he has to, that he can maybe get his hands dirty a little bit if he has to, and he's got to live up to those expectations that he'll enter this race with that nobody else has. Thanks for joining us today at stevedeace.com. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook. You can email us, steve@stevedeace.com. We're also on Twitter at steve_deace. God bless.